Hello, and welcome to the 26th episode of Last Attempt, a World of Warcraft Guildcast. I'm your host, Squirrelthug. Joining me today on the show once again is our co-host, Templrivanho.
What's up?
Patch 12.1, Curse of Ula'tek, is almost here. Preseason kicks off August 11th, with Season 2 fully live August 18th. We break down exactly how Great Vault and Mythic Zero loot works during that transition week. Spoiler, the old bonus roll trick is dead. Preview the Venomous Abyss raids 8 bosses and staggered unlock raid schedule, and dig into Lairs, Blizzard's new world boss system debuting with the Tidebound Grotto. Plus, shareable housing blueprints, 2 new Warband campsites, the Zul'jarra's Forces Renown grind, a new Midnight lore comic, which was really good. I definitely check that one out. And a curious signal that a new WoW Classic iteration might be closer than we think. Let's get started with our roundtable. Templrivanho, what have you been up to this last week?
Well, the first thing is that we finally got dragons down with the guild.
Hell yeah.
And it was actually the first pull of the night.
Oh, damn. Yeah, you guys had gotten like sub 1% pulls of the night before, right?
Yeah, we ended up getting, I think the first one was 0.7, the next one was 0.4, then 0.2%. And then on Thursday, we just did it the very first pull, which was
That's gotta
pretty
feel
darn
good.
cool. Oh, yeah.
I noticed that you were able to remember getting a screenshot.
Yes, that I did.
Yeah, awesome.
I was like, we were going up the stairs, and I was like, hey guys, let's not forget to take a screenshot this time. So
they're already walking
everybody,
away.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then for our pools on Vanguard, I think we have a decent shot at getting him next week, just in time for 11.2 to begin.
Nice.
Or 12.1. Completely switched the numbers. Other than that, the other thing is I've been just running my warrior, mainly protection warrior, through ritual sites to just farm the crests to upgrade our gear. I know that it's 12.1 is right around the corner, but I was just making sure to get her up because I was thinking of maybe having her as a second tank, just
Okay.
outright. And so I've been having fun with that, and just keeping up on auctions to pay for my WoW account's time. And I know we have a low amount of gold in the guild bank, so been using that also to create cauldrons for the guild until we can start getting some BOEs to sell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everything's getting real expensive. And we haven't had any drop lately, have we?
No, and the plan next week is going to just extend and go to Vanguard, um, mainly because number one, everybody's pretty much maxed out, whether it's crest or gear in and of itself, and two, just want to get another boss down for the guild.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. You get pretty close to that CE for Voidspire, but at least you got CE for Chimeras.
Yep.
So still a current relevant CE guild.
Yes, sir. Even if it's just 1 out of 1.
Yeah. It still counts. That was still a mythic boss. That guy was tough. Like you don't pug through that. You gotta. Well, I mean, now you do. Everyone's so powerful, but we got it. We got it when you had to try, and we tried really hard.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember downing that boss. I stood up out of my chair and I screamed. That was exciting. He was tough. It's fun to have a really tough challenge like Laura.
Yeah, it just sucks that we didn't have a little more time. Like, I know we would be able to get, like, um, Crown and Bellerin down, if we had more time, but
Yeah.
that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, the increased cadence is a little it's a little wonky, but honestly, I think the beginning of the expansions are usually rough because there's a leveling experience. It's like in front of that, right?
Hmm.
And then depending on how long it takes for you to get on that track, you may miss the track with the rest of the guild and not have like just groups coincidentally to run content with, and it takes you longer. There's a lot of things that could happen, and the little bits will compound against you in terms of like pacing and keeping up at the beginning of an expansion. I think mostly because of the leveling process, but it seems that as long as you're staying current with what we're doing right now, right? Like raid, mythic raid and such, moving into the next content, you're gonna be knocking out mythic zeros easy. And we'll be talking about the lockouts for that. But yeah, basically you're gonna hit each one for the first week.
Yeah, and at the very least, I know, like you said, the beginning of an expansion is very hard, um, for that transition into, raiding. Um, but I think the way that the crests and the way that loot is sort of becoming, where, if you do all your mythics, you're guaranteed like mythic loot. The raids are now going to be, if you do all heroics, it's going to be the next level, aka mythic gear. Similarly, if you do all normals, it'll be heroic gear in the vault. So we have had a long time since even the vault was first introduced. I believe it was technically BFA, but it was like a random piece of loot and you couldn't choose between it. And then eventually that evolved into the Great Vault during Shadowlands. But I'm glad to see that the loot situation just keeps sort of getting better and better, and we're seeing the ability to adapt quicker and to level alts quicker, whether it's just for fun or for actually, participating in a raid or Mythic Plus, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, what I've been doing this last week have been leveling up my bear tank and gearing
Nice.
up my balance druid. However, funny enough, I'm gearing up my balance druid with balance druid gear and grabbing those where I can. But I'm getting into content and basically staying able to like tag along with a raid or lead the raid myself by healing.
Oh,
Because
nice.
I'm
Yeah,
better at
because
healing than I am at balance. I'm still practicing balance. I'm still trying to get it down. But what I have now is I've got a pretty good rotation down for like how I'm supposed to deal with that. The tank is so much easier. There's something about it. The bear is
yeah,
just so much easier, dude. Like it's just push your button, stay alive. Like, okay, well, I was already gonna stay alive anyways. I guess I'll just push my buttons.
Iron Fur is a hell of a
Dude,
drug.
it's so good. Yeah, it's night and day. I'm playing the other two specs, and it's just like tank is so much easier in the role. Like the biggest burden that I see coming ahead of myself is that like in Mythic Zeros, insofar that I've participated in them from the start of the War Within, I've never been a tank, so I've never had the responsibility of understanding pools and routes and any of that stuff. Like that's basically next on the list for season two. I'll have to learn that aspect of Mythic Zeros for my tank, but outside of that, the complexity from like the class is not even any. It's not a second guess in my mind. Like it's just like, oh, this is gonna be cake on that part. Like that will be fine. My gear will be fine. I just have to learn what to pull and what not to pull.
Right, right. Um, I think it's also a unique perspective, you saying that you're leading a raid as a healer. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a easy feat to do, but yeah, I'm glad to hear you're having fun on the tank and everything.
Yeah, the tank, that one will probably be a little bit more normal for me to run my own raid on that alt. Because like I feel like the basically where I'm at with gear, like especially when I was on my balanced druid, where I'm at with gear, I understand that if I were to go in DPS, I wouldn't perform well, and I probably would get kicked out of a group, or they'd leave, or I don't know. I probably wouldn't make the cut. But I'm like, okay, well, even though I have balance gear, the crossover is good enough. I can heal because I'm really good at that, and I can just lead the raid so that I don't get any fucking questions about anything from anyone about my gear. Because somebody's like, I am not up there. Like the people that I'm picking are just like it. They're like 270, and 265 and
Mhm.
stuff, and I'm down at like 250. And so, and I'm doing fine. Like I'm keeping up with all the healers. I think I brought in I had a healer in with me on a heroic, or we did mythic, and it didn't go well. We only did we only killed like the first boss of that raid. But um I had a druid come in. He had way more gear, resto druid, way more gear than I did. It was like 285, and I out healed him.
Oh,
So I was like, okay,
nice.
I'm good. As long as I heal, I can keep my role in a raid, and yeah, and most people know like what's going on, so it wasn't too hard to like just let the tanks mostly like do whatever. Like yeah, most tanks are pretty good with like putting the marks down and such. There's a couple times where they ask me like which strat we're gonna use, but there's basically like I think it's just like if it's not liquid strat, people are just not bothering with it.
Right, right. It's funny you mentioned marks too, because at the beginning of our Kill of the Dragons, I actually forgot to put the marks down, and so as we were doing them, I start putting them down
Oh
around
dang,
the around the second gloom, but got them down in time, so nobody got killed from that. So,
that's crazy. Multitasking.
hmm
Yeah, that's yeah, so that's what I've been doing this last week, and oh, that's what I was gonna say is that I what I notice about when I'm like as I'm gearing up my druids, or at least as I'm gearing to the balance because I'm just leveling the tank. It's amazing that I only have to pay 10 crests for every upgrade instead of 20 because I've already gotten that
yes,
achievement. So like the gearing process for any alt is literally cut in half. It's such a great system.
hmm hmm
It really, yeah, it cuts so much time in half. Like, I mean, it's literally half the half the mythic plus dungeons that I have to run. Mythic tens and stuff, and whatever that I'll be getting for my mythic gear. Because well, I mean, I don't know. We only got a couple weeks left, so I'll probably won't be gearing that. But yeah, yeah. Let's get into that for our first news item. The season 2 Great Vault and the Mythic Zero changes that are coming in. Um, so Blizzard has locked in exactly how loot works during season two's preseason week, and the old skip the vault for a bonus roll trick is no longer happening. It was reported in on Wowhead that they would be changing this to, I believe, you're just not going to get an option to choose a uh what are they called? They're the
void cores.
void core. You're not gonna be you're
Yeah.
not gonna but now they're the venomous void cores. So you're not in season two. So you're not gonna be able to have an option to choose that from the first week's Great Vault. You'll only be able to choose gear. Because before it's basically just just choose the thing and you'll be able to get into a mythic 10 this week probably or next week, and then that piece of gear will be a guaranteed mythic instead of the hero piece that you're going to be getting there. Well, of course, if you do the difficult content or whatever in each of the tiers. But yeah, I believe hero gears is what you'll be getting in the vault for like season for the first week. But the events that you can participate in, the most you're going to get is I believe hero gear from what Mythic Zeros. No, I think those are still just champion. So you're getting like veteran and champion. So you can get a lot of chests with veteran gear, and then doing like certain content, like Prey. What is it? The deadly version? I forget which one that is.
Nightmare version.
Nightmare. If you do the Nightmare, the hardest difficulty for Prey, you will get champion gear. Um, Delves, however, the highest gear that they're going to give you for the first week is going to be veteran gear. So there are certain things that do not unlock until the second week. Yeah, it's coffer keys and the bountiful delves. Those won't be available until the second week, until like the season 2 actually goes live. So mythic, or sorry, delves all the way up to 11 will only give you veteran gear.
Dang, what am I going to do with my 74 restored coffer keys?
Wait for that first week of the season and spam them all. That's a lot. And
That's not even that's not even like intending to do it. It's just doing other activities.
yeah, you do collect them from everything else. It's a nice loop if you have the delves in your loop, because you can just do the other stuff and then loop right into delves and then get your gear that way. It's a very nice if you participate in those things, like you do your prey and you enjoy those. Like I on my healer I don't, but on my DPS and my tank I definitely will. So I think that praise will be part of the loop that I do on those characters. So yeah. For the first week, Mythic Zeros will only be available, and there will be a 1 week long lockout until season 2 starts on the 18th, and then they flip to a daily lockout.
Yep. So it's just like the first part of this expansion doing the same thing, um, which again, makes sense. Glad to see. Um, Again, we're seeing a lot of consistency in the way Blizzard handles things now. Um, so we can expect this to be the same way in the next patch. Um, but I would imagine we're also keeping the Omnian Folio powers we have currently. Like, I know we're going to have it through the rest of the expansion, but I'm guessing that, it's not like, say, going to go away this first week or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to stay with us for the rest of the season. There's an option. There's a UI element on the mini map that allows you to open it up, and you should have already, the fifth week has been available for a while, and they're fairly easy to unlock. But I didn't see any story or extended trees or anything for the talent tree for the Omnium Folio for 12.1. So I don't know if we're waiting till point 0.5 or a point 0.7 to give us more of that to increase the power of the Omnium Folio. But then that would mean that it's just this sort of power increase that they like a dial that they use at the end of the season or something.
Yeah, that's what my guess is going to be. And just that, keep the powers, and then it just, mm, now that I think about it, we'll probably get a couple more, at the very least, a couple more spots on the talent tree for the folio, but um, they'll probably up the power of it as well, but probably not a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with it because it is replacing some of the power-ups that we had gotten, like Cersei Circlet and the disc belt and such. And if I remember, those also didn't come in at the beginning of the season. They were like a point 0.5 and a point 0.7 patch. So it does seem that this is, just like those are a sort of dial that they can turn up to, one more thing to balance the entirety of the rating and Mythic Plus ecosystem, and then tangentially the PvP system.
Right, right.
Yeah, because they did mention that they are, trying to focus on PvP and give that some love too. But for the most part, there's not very many people that play that part of the game. But yeah, they, this might be the sort of near the end of a season dial, so we probably shouldn't expect anything from this for a little bit. Um, Yeah, and so on the week of August 25th, that is the day that you will be able to choose you'll be able to have your first real bonus roll opportunity in the Great Vault. But there's a change for this. Right now, you can choose the option to get like a currency. And if you have one slot unlocked in your vault, when you go to choose your reward, if you don't want that one slot, you can get two tokens. If you have two options that you've unlocked anywhere in the Great Vault, then you will be offered four tokens. And then the same applies if you have three slots or more unlocked, uh, not choosing a piece of gear and choosing the tokens instead, you will get six tokens. So it's tied to how many slots you've unlocked up to three. So basically, the idea each week that you should be doing is do at least three activities with, like, because you could do like a nightmare prey and you'd unlock your first one for the world tier, and then you can go do one mythic zero, or not a mythic zero, mythic plus, and you'd unlock the another one, and you can go do a raid boss in LFR and you unlock the next one. Like, it really doesn't matter what you do as long as you're knocking off the bare minimum for the first slots, which are all very easy and take almost no time at all, each one of them. If you're trying to speed run it through an alt, or you don't have that much time for the week, you can just do that. And with the three of them unlocked this season, then you would have an option for six tokens. Next season, you're not going to be able to unlock only two. You get four tokens, and then like next week choose the tokens again, and then like just like make up for it, right? You will only be able to choose a void core, a bonus roll token, if you have at least three slots unlocked. So it's not an option for you, and I think it's like a secondary option. Like, you can get the tokens, and that system I think still applies. But the void core is a secondary option next to that. And in order to even be eligible to choose that, you have to have at least three slots unlocked. So you definitely keep that in mind for the first week, and keep that in mind going forward the rest of the season, because if you don't get at least three activities, it's going to bite you.
Yeah, it's a good way to keep participation up and everything, which is understandable. Um, uh, Especially, not to be lazy.
And they're twice as valuable this season because they only take one void core to unlock a piece of gear in a raid.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, they made that nice little change for us, which is different because the loot pools are smaller for raid. So it's kind of switches it. It kind of shifts it over to raids being the place you kind of want to spend your void cores.
Right. Except for like maybe a couple dungeons which might have
Yeah,
bistan slots like trinkets or something.
yeah, dude. Pit of Sauron this first season was just like stacked with gear that was just going to put me in a really good place. Like, it had so many pieces all in one dungeon. If I rolled through most of the table, I would have like two pieces that weren't going to maybe be useful to me. Maybe they would, and the rest of them were definite upgrades.
Right, right.
So yeah, definitely we'll be looking forward to doing a little bit of simming in the beginning and finding exactly which one I should focus on and run a lot. But yeah, you can get a few pieces there, and then I would imagine that just like Imperator in Voidspire was front loaded with weapons and such. The first boss in Ula'tek is probably going to be front loaded with weapons, and you might want to spend your void cores there just for chances to get weapons. And I believe, because of the flex and the way that works, and it's been working this season, go back in again, kill the boss again, and then roll that bonus roll if you've got another one, because they only cost one now.
Yeah, and did they say which bosses or any of the bosses are going to be flexed this tier, or because I don't think they did.
In the raid in Ula'tek, I did not see any details for that, but I know that the Tidebound Grotto, the world boss, will be flex.
Okay, that's what I thought. Um, I'm just curious, what they're going to do or how they, because I think they said like the experiment was good, but I don't think they really said exactly, if they're going to be pulling it forward for a normal raid boss, not world one.
Yeah, I'm hoping. the Ula'tek raid is the Venomous Abyss is actually flex all the way up to Mythic, because that would just make raid nights so much easier for just getting in and doing the boss, fighting this getting through this content. The hardest part is getting people online.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's usually I don't know. There's certain times where it would be very useful to be able to flex up or down. Somebody shows up and it's like, okay, this person's got like really good DPS. We can add them to the raid and they will make a significant difference and compensate for what they add, right? Like
Right.
there's I feel like the flex is definitely the answer, but we didn't hear I didn't hear anything about that or read anything about that. So when it launches, I got my fingers crossed.
Yeah, and I'm thinking they might do another sort of Sporeful type of thing near the end, sort of like how we just discussed the Omnian Folio.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't get any more than just the Tidebound Grotto, which I guess is almost like the Rotmire raid, right? It's out
Hmm.
in the world. You zone into it. It's flex. They just sold Rotmire as one boss raid like Chimeras and Mythic Flex, the ability to flex all the way up to Mythic and its instance, so that makes sense. Um, but there was an achievement with it. Killing him on mythic difficulty didn't give you a cutting edge or anything, and so somebody had mentioned that this system that we're going to experience here with Tidebound Grotto was actually introduced with Rotmire. So the Sporefall
Yeah,
raid was the first time they did it, and maybe the Sporefall raid was an outdoor raid. It's like an outdoor boss. They just didn't call it that.
you know what? That would make sense, especially its like physical position on the map, being right. I mean, it's like smack dab into the same area that the Delve is in Harndar,
Yeah.
with the little mushroom men. So that very well could be, and it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, the way it shook out and the difficulty that the boss presented, it's just the only thing is they didn't sell it as, a world boss with this thing, right? With this ability, the Mythic Flex. They're selling the Tidebound Grotto as that, but yeah, it seems to be a mirror of the Sporefall raid, and that's okay because that worked out really well and it gives some pretty decent loot. So Tidebound Grotto should be pretty cool. It's actually you have to swim to it. Like it's underwater and the entrance is like down below the water line on the side of the island, the coiled isle, and that is so cool. I have my turtle mount that I got from Wrath of Lich King from fishing. And so every time there's like water content, I always love riding that because you swim a little bit faster.
Yeah, definitely. Um, just as long as we're not going to get another raid boss
A sheer.
underground, because yeah, the I forget the exact name of the boss. I'm going to try to look it up, but three-dimensional uh, vertices for a boss was not exactly the best idea for that squid boss.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that one. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And you get empowered and you have to fight that squid.
mhm. I mean, it was sort of fun, but
That was a Legion dungeon, wasn't it?
it was BFA, and I think it was
Mm.
actually. I'm getting it a little bit confused. I think it might have been Blackwater Behemoth. Technically, he's like a giant fish, but I believe there was a point where you had to like destroy some tentacles on like what amounted to some ads or something. But yeah, it was certainly a choice.
Yeah, that one was interesting. I uh for some reason the the sort of swimming animation technique like that they have in WoW is just it's not good at all. And Azumat is the Kraken that we fight. I think that you're talking about. It's in Throne of the Tides from Cataclysm.
Yes.
Yeah, that was we helped Neptulon the Tide Hunter, and he empowered us to fight. And then
Oh
we
no
get
no
to
no
was
that was a dungeon. The Blackwater Behemoth was Eternal Palace.
oh okay, I'm thinking of a different one. Okay, you know what? No, with this one you just get bigger. You don't actually start swimming.
Right.
That's why I'm because I was like remembering there's a camera change in that fight, but no, you just get bigger. So let me see. Hold on. Yeah, so the Tidebound Grotto is it just sounds cool. We get to fight a Naga. We haven't had Naga in the story in a little bit, and they're very closely tied with old gods. Seems like the old god story isn't really done yet. Ula'tek has something to do with that. So seeing a Naga here is actually par for the course. And I didn't see any in the raid, but I expect the Naga to be a little bit more part of the story as we go forward, maybe point 0.5, point 0.7 in the season, and we'll see a little bit of them.
Yeah, especially with Zalatath being not just in league with like the old gods and that whole thing where she, made a deal and betrayed them. But if memory serves, Zul'jarra is like sort of got away if
Yep.
in
Last time,
BFA
yeah,
at the
she
end.
snuck away.
And I think she didn't she mention Zalatath or something? I want to say yes, but at any rate, you know, they're so closely tied into all this, and we still don't. Again, we still don't know everything, and can't wait to see more of it being pulled together, especially as as Blizzard has mentioned, a lot of people, including myself to an extent, are seeing the new raid as sort of a side tangent, but from what they're saying, it's going to be more, it's more closely integrated into the story and just what's going on in WoW and Midnight than we think.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to take a look at the lore walking for the Loa. Um, because the lore walking for the 12.0.7 that got dropped, where you follow Lily around, she takes you through the story of a few of the Loa, and I read some footnotes about it, and it does seem to kind of give you a primer on all these things, and then also Blom Samdi, and so there's like a little bit of him coming back into the story, but we'll talk about this a little bit later. There's a comic that they had released, and in there they definitely there's a relationship that the trolls have with the Loa, and depending on who you are and what you believe, you are either like you either like them or you resent them. Like you're okay with the power that they give, but there's a sort of thought that they don't give enough, and like the trolls, they want to be a great empire like they were before. Like their empires were massive, and there were no gaps between them, right? Like they spanned the
Hmm.
globe. It was crazy the level of power that they had. But Ula'tek has, according to their lore, is not sleeping or in slumber or something. That is a prison that the old powerful, the height of the troll empire and power. They created that prison, they built it, and then they put Ula'tek in there and bound her and made sure that she could not come out until they needed her again because she was, they don't get too much into the detail, but I imagine that in this season we're gonna find out a lot more. But the lore for that is something to the extent of there was a great threat to the kingdom. They needed, for to not in the kingdom, but the entire empire, and they needed the power that Ula'tek gave in order to fight against that. But in the end, Ula'tek was also like very dangerous. And so while Ula'tek is powerful enough for them to do what they needed to do and to push back the tide that they needed to, it was still very, very dangerous. Even to the point that like even with all the power that they had gained, they were still like, it's not worth it. Like we'll figure it out another way, but we have to seal this away. And so there's also been hints that Ula'tek has old god origins and is slightly different than all the other Loas.
Interesting. I suppose that's we talked about this a few episodes ago. Um, but the whole idea of the deification for um, I'm not sure if it's like all races or if it's or all creatures who can become Loa, but maybe somehow that ties into that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if there's some connection to like Shadowlands and how that all shakes out, with like the afterlife, because um, they've got the sort of resurrection cycle that they've got going on there, right? Like I think they brought back a dragon,
Hmm.
sacrificed a whole bunch of anima for it as well. And so there's this whole thing that they have to contend with down there. Um, but it's interesting because certain things like don't move onto the Shadowlands, right? Like you see like orcs, and when they're on Draenor, they were always talking to their ancestors like it was normal, like it's just like an everyday thing. Like we just call them up and I talk to Grandpa, because the spirits didn't leave; they stayed there on Draenor, and they were able to commune with them because in the same way that they commune with the elements, they were one and the same. And so this sort of elemental plane, these, and I don't know if that was just because it was a shamanistic culture and they were in tune with the elements so much that when they died, instead of passing on the Shadowlands, they stayed there. But there are different death cycles that we have going on here in this game, and I don't know that they've like really fleshed them all out. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see like where the Loa come into this, because Wamswandi is like a Loa of death and such, right?
Hmm.
They still have things that are in within that realm. Yeah, very interesting. I just lore are very mysterious. We don't have a lot of lore on them, and so I hope this expansion, or this season really gives us a lot more, especially in our point 5 and point 7 patches. But maybe point 5 and point 7 is how we tie it into where we're going next.
Right, and judging by the length of, I don't know if it's the length, but like the amount of story we're getting, I think we're going to be able to, like they're going to try to expand on the story as much as they can, um, because with the end of the war within, um, we went into a whole different place with the ethereals, and really sort of explored something that was all the way back in Burning Crusade, and to a lesser extent Classic with the ethereals and everything. So my guess is that with the Loa, we have Zalatath and whatever comes in the last patch. It's going to be a lot of sort of intricate threading that's going to lead us to the end of the trilogy with the next expansion.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they pulled Ashara into the story somehow. I think she's a really good character. I think she's really well written. She's got some deep lore, and a tragic story. And like, I believe she made a deal with an old god, which is why she's not an elf anymore, and neither are her people, and they are all sea monsters.
Yeah, I know they made some sort of. I think they made some sort of deal with the Burning Legion, um, but at the same time, it was one of those things where they made a deal with the Legion first and then with an old god. But my knowledge on Ashara isn't too good, so don't take anything I say with a grain of salt, because my memory's bad on that.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
I'm
lore
thinking of
sometimes.
excuse me, I'm thinking of Elisande versus Ashara. That's my bad. Yeah, Elisan made the deal with the demons, and then Ashar with the old gods, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They, these elves, they live maybe a little bit too long and get hungry for power. So,
Yeah.
Lorthamar, not Lorthamar. Who's the guy that he took over for? Because the guy before him went crazy. Uh,
Oh snap! I forget.
yeah, he's the one who drops ashes, right? Ashes of Valar.
I believe so. Let's Take
Yeah.
a look.
Yeah, that guy. Another elf that went crazy. Go figure.
It's almost like too much power is a bad thing.
Yeah, it'll definitely corrupt.
Kael'thas, or because I don't think that's who it was.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I think Kael'thas was the one that went crazy. Or, he's just he's trying to do stuff for his people. It was just tragic. Right. And then basically the
Mhm.
same thing with like Ashara. When the Sundering happened, she was already like very powerful. As were a few of the elves that were up in that upper echelon of society, but she was like way up there. Like everybody knew her. She made a deal with Nizoth. And so her people, she was drowning, so were her people. The sundering had just like exploded and tore the land apart, and now everybody is just dunked into the sea. And yeah, she refused to become merely his servant and demanded to remain a queen. And her people were transformed along with her. Basically, she's commanding an army for the old gods, but I think the old gods are basically gone now, and she's also like aware of that. So it's almost like she's like a free agent now, And I think that Ajar has been really unpredictable in a lot of ways. Like when they bring her in, it's like, oh, I didn't know you would be part of the story, And she always seems to be in something that like sort of it makes it seem that she has a lot of knowledge. She knows a lot about like ancient power and old gods and titans and a bunch of other stuff. Like she's just very knowledgeable in all these things. And so when she does get introduced into a part of the story or a chapter that we're doing, she's always like 2 steps ahead. And she always gets away.
Yeah, and just like Xal'atath, so they're neither one of them, or I guess I should say both of them are uh, uh, very worthy foes for us champions.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd be interested to see how her and Zaltath interact. I can't imagine that Ashara would be um, just like up for any of her games. You know,
Hmm.
she seems to me a lot closer to like a Sylvanas type character. That Zaltath would just avoid.
Yeah.
Okay, and on to our next news item with the new Lairs feature, Tidebound Grotto. We were just talking about this, and this is an instant scalable world boss fight. Solo players can queue for this into the world difficulty. So the world difficulty is basically the LFR difficulty, and you can get a group together and then jump into normal or heroic. And there's a flexible 15 to 25 player mythic difficulty. So basically the Sporefall raid, except with the Sporefall raid there was a LFR that you can queue up for. The way this is saying, I don't like just because of the way that they worded it. I imagine that you have to walk up to it and then click the entrance. Just kind of like the way you go to like void assaults right now, you're going to click on it and then choose the world difficulty and then queue up for it. It'll get you into the dungeon if you queue up for it. And as players are being filled into the dungeon, there are monsters and other like Naga and such that you'll have to fight. And as you kind of defeat those, then at some point you've defeated enough, and the boss comes out. And it's I don't know, sort of like maybe like a time kill mechanic as you're as you're waiting for everyone to fill in. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You just get in there, and I believe you can do the same thing if you can queue up for it for normal and heroic. But I'm not 100% sure. I just know that the world difficulty has a queue, and you can jump in solo.
Yeah. My guess is it's going to be similar to the um, during the last part of Dragonflight with the Emerald Nightmare, or I'm sorry, Amir Jersil. There was that giant world event that you could do once a week, and during the world event, you could complete it as a raid, um, and in doing so, um, and finishing the event, you got like a pouch of like different items and reagents. You got some seeds to use for the uh I forget, I don't know what you want to call it, the like world
The
event
dream in the
thing.
dream, right?
Yeah. Um and then you also got a piece of gear and some currency. So my guess is it's going to be similar to that, just instance instead of out in the world. Um and and whenever you did that, you would face sort of a gauntlet for like 5 to 10 minutes, where you had to essentially walk with one of the guardian trees, and, or treants, excuse me, and just go basically halfway around the map and then defeat a boss at the end. um, so my guess it's going to be similar to that. Just kill a lot of trash, like you intimated, and and then a boss at the end after so many minutes or so much trash is dead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this sounds pretty similar to that. And one more detail that I do want to point out is Blizzard originally listed all difficulties for this raid, the Tidebound Grotto, as available August 11th. That was reported on by the community, Wowhead, and a few others, and Blizzard quickly corrected that because it would have so this thing would have split raid guilds to like run over to Tidebound Grotto to try to run all like mythic splits and such or whatever on only that. Or you'd have to like logistically figure out how many hours you should commit to mythic splitting on Tidebound Grotto mythic difficulty. And then once you've got some pretty decent mythic gear from there, then take your team into the Venomous Abyss and then burn through everything and like catch up and pass people, right? So there would be some logistics that you would have to start to consider with that, but they've corrected that, and for right now, only the world difficulty unlocks at the beginning of the season or the beginning of the patch 12.1, August 11th, and when season 2 launches on August 18th, the normal through mythic difficulties will be unlocked for Tidebound Grotto.
I'm surprised we're getting mythic for that so quick, but I do like that.
Yeah, so I mean that is when it's also when the the bosses for Venomous Abyss open up for like mythic difficulty. So it'll be interesting to see where they go, right? Because you're not going to get a cutting edge for it achievement or anything like that, and I don't know where the loot in that table stands against the raid loot. So it might not even be a consideration, right? They might just like not even go there at all and just focus on the raid and trying to like push and down bosses.
Right, which would make sense.
So that'll be interesting to see once it comes out. But yeah, the gearing situation will be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot even easier this season than it was last season, and last season was just so easy. So yeah, definitely take a look at the post for this. Blizzard had dropped a post. They titled it "Curse of Ula'tek goes live August 11th. Journey to the Coiled Isle." You should be able to go to the World of Warcraft website and click on their news at the top, the header, and you will see an article with that name. I would suggest going to that article, and we're going to go over a bunch of like sub articles that go into detail about like each of these things, but this is sort of a catch-all of everything that you should come to expect on the 12.1 patch. And basically pay attention to the loot that drops from these places and plan out ahead what your character is going to do. Like, are you going to focus on prey in the first week, and then get all your mythic zeros done, and then move on to something else? You kind of want to check that out because, like I said, delves, the highest gear they're going to give is veteran. I think it's like veteran, maybe like 2 out of 6 or something. Um, for the first week.
Yeah, and uh, make sure to try and go, with your own guildies, just so you can get more of the mythic dungeons and share the loot faster.
Yeah, being able to
Always the
pass
best thing.
loot off and pass it around with your guildies, you're gonna get the most bang for your buck, But also, thankfully, there is a very sharing nature among a lot of people who are in mythic dungeons, mythic plus keys, or just mythic zeros at the beginning of the season. I remember personally grinding because I had to do Eowyn on my own because I leveled Calamity first with everyone, and then when I went back, I was leveling with a lot of strangers, gearing up with a lot of strangers, and even then, people were just very like, "Hey, I don't need this. This is not an upgrade, but I know it might be for other people. Like, who wants this?" You know. And so there's just I like that that's sort of like the default for the community when it comes to like the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
At least in the ones I got into. I know some of them can be toxic, but
yeah, but like you said, most people are accommodating, I think.
yeah, I think people are really excited. The concept of like if I could just continue this trend, then I'm at some point I'm going to participate and I'm going to benefit from this. Somebody's going to give me a trinket that I need because they've already got one, right? Like, and it happens a lot, So people, I mean, especially if you get into a group of, I don't even know if they fixed the bug where your character was only getting one type of loot, right? Right? Remember that at the beginning of the expansion?
Yep, yep. Supposedly they did, but there were, I think, if memory serves, it sort of they didn't fix it fully, at least at one point, whenever they thought they did.
Mhm.
But I think they said they did finally.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
We'll.
put out a fix, and there's a thing that they didn't check, and so
Mhm.
yeah, you basically had to like just run through the loot table again, kind of thing. But yeah. So it's supposed to be fixed. So we might not run into something like that. But even without that, people end up having extra loot or loot that they don't need. So definitely ask. If you see something drop and that's like your best in slot or like something that's really good, just ask. Like say something in party chat or whisper somebody. Some of the times people don't pay attention or they're just like not aware. So make sure you don't leave really fast. Speak up in party chat and then directly whisper the person if you see something drop that you might be able to use, and just start a conversation and politely ask if you can have it.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to be said about being polite. So.
Yeah, then people won't leave your key in the middle of it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's the system we're gonna have for layers, and we had a little bit of a confusion with how it was reported, but Blizzard cleared that up, so we've got more clarity on that now. Um, for our next news item, we've got housing blueprints and new campsites coming in 12.1. Uh, Patch 12.1 makes housing more shareable with a new blueprint system and adds two more Silvermoon campsites to unlock through weekly quests. Blueprints let players save and import full housing layouts through a dedicated UI button with up to 50 save per account and automatic backups whenever you import something new. Exterior and full build blueprints stay faction specific, but interiors are universal and can be shared across the divide. Basically, what this means is you have two options whenever you want to create a code for sharing your house. You have the ability to share, or actually, it's like three options. You have the ability to share only the exterior, only the interior, or both the exterior and interior together as a single unit. Now, when you're sharing the exterior, that's of course like neighborhood specific. So Horde or Alliance, whichever neighborhood you're in, you'll only be able to share that exterior to another house that's in one of those neighborhoods, right? And that sort of makes sense. Um, because I believe there are a few things that might be like faction specific or in one of the loot tables and not in the other. Because I've had some items that show up in my horde house but not in my lion's house, and I think they're like faction specific things. Very odd, but this probably has something to do with it. Um, And if you share the entire house, well, that would include the outside, and that would flag it for being faction specific. So if you want it to be very flexible, you would share the interior code. Now, out of the three different ways that you can share, there should be an understanding that the 50 saved slots, um, you have to keep them there. So if I share a code with the community and I want a bunch of people to see my really cool house, they want to see the inside of it. I made a really cool like dining room or something, or a really cool fighting pit, and I want people to just check it out in their own house or they want to use it. I will generate the code for the interior only. It'll just be that, that. And then when I share it, I will have to make sure that that code stays in my list. If I ever delete it, it's no longer able to be imported by somebody. So the reason for this is because all of the intricate details of each item, its position, its XYZ position, its axis, how it's rotated, what it's colored. There's so many variables with this that basically what you're sharing is a pointer. It's basically a link back to your database. So you have like your own database for the things that you're creating, and you have 50 slots. And when you share those, uh, yours needs to be in that list in order for them to import it. So, like, if it's an old code and you click on it and you try to import it, and that person has already deleted it from their list, you will no longer, you won't, you'll get an error. Like, there's nothing that is actually pointing to, so you will no longer be able to import anything. So the option here for players that find a build that's shared to them and they want to make sure that they keep it themselves and they don't depend on just importing it again later on, you would take your house as it is with that, newly imported build, and you would export it and save it to your list of 50. Now you have this set up saved in your list of 50, and it'll always be there. And you can share that with people however you want. But those are sort of the limitations that you have to think of. For people who don't do very many builds, probably not a problem. But for people who are going to be sharing a lot and doing a lot of community events and such, you might run out of your 50 slots really soon. And when you have to think about, it's much better to share interiors and exteriors separately. You will be taking up twice as many slots as if you were to just share the whole thing.
Yeah, it seems like something that it's almost like I don't want to say limitation in the system, but it seems like a system that they have to do it that way. Um, in other words, just the sheer amount of technicality to it. Because I mean, with the housing system, you can not just put, let's say, a treasure chest in the corner of a room, but you can put that treasure chest. You can, turn it 180 degrees. You can
You can sink it into the
enlarge it.
ground.
Yeah, you can sink it in the ground. You can enlarge it. You can shrink it. You can put something else, sort of like in it. And by that I mean, like, you can sort of combine different furniture, and then you can do cool things like make a door from a portal, or maybe even like a painting into sort of like a Mario 64 sort of portal or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So
Or the
um
Zalatath feet portrait on somebody made on their wall. They like
yeah.
obviously use like a lot of items to make that giant portrait.
Right, right. So this seems to be the the best way to do it, because I honestly, like, I don't know how you would really. I mean, theoretically, you could do it by, being one hell of an export of like JSON data or something, but
Yeah.
that
I
would
mean, it would
be.
be just a huge list of tuples, right?
Mhm.
It'd be like item ID and then XYZ axis and then like, rotation degree, radian, and then probably any other variables for size variable, right? Like the increase in size.
Mhm.
There's so many data points for each individual item that, yeah, even if it was a list of tuples, like it would still be a huge list.
Yeah. So, um, that would be, my guess why it's the way it is. And realistically speaking, I don't know how they would make it so that, other than just more data per account, let's say, making from 50 to 100. But at the very least, it's a really good start. And I'm actually surprised in a good way that they have automatic backups.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Those it's really nice that you'll have, you have your blueprint loaded and then you like update it with stuff and then now your blueprint's good. Like it updates it. So that's really cool. And yeah, like you were saying, this seems to be the most technically efficient way for them to get this done. However, I was thinking, and I may want to make my way over to like an add-on panel or developer panel for add-ons and such if they have that at BlizzCon, and just so I can ask them about like if they're thinking about taking into consideration to I understand why they didn't export it in the way that if you were to see our talent trees, the way that they're exported, all the
Right.
entire string is defining which nodes you're choosing along your tree. And while there are many options, there's not enough of them to be cumbersome. So you just grab the code and import, export, share it everywhere. It's a really easy system. It's really good. In order to do something similar for this system, the code that you would share would be absolutely massive. In terms of like a text file, like it would just, you would not be able to read through it. It would look like your crypto keys.
Yeah, it really would.
But I think add-on developers could do something about this, right? Because the limitations that we have here is that Blizzard does not want to store that data redundantly for a bunch of people and fill all that in. It makes more sense to store it in a singular location on a singular account and then just link everybody to that and then have that just spawn another thing, right? Like, I mean, like,
Hmm.
so it's basically just inheriting everything from that. It's a smart way to do it, definitely. And but I believe it's really just a limitation of the system and storage and such. I think that if they were to be able to allow that data to be received from like or to be called upon from like an API, right? Um, add-on developers could store that data themselves, right, and share those codes themselves. So it wouldn't be up to Blizzard to have to hold on to these large files, for every single player, just so that there's this sort of thing that you can share across everything, right? If they were to give us access to that, we could have a redundant way of sharing that isn't baked into the game, right? Like, sure, this is really cool
Hmm.
and I appreciate it, but there's obvious limitations to this. And I think that if we pull out of that and we're able to like really pull some like actual data that's useful, because people have like 3D model viewers and other things to check out and play with World of Warcraft assets. I could absolutely see somebody building software that is literally just you in your house. Like it's not World of Warcraft. It's just a 3D model of your house as you go through and like build it with the entire library that's available in the whole of the game. And even though you don't have those items, like you're a creative person and you've put this together and now you're like selling this for gold or something, or whatever. Like I think if you're creative enough and people want to pay you for it, like definitely, like there's some add-on developers that get like donations. There's some add-ons that sell the add-on, So like yeah, I think they should definitely allow add-on developers access to it. This is a cool solution. I like the way they're doing this. I think that in the future they should consider opening it up though.
Yeah, and more than likely they will. Um, it's Blizzard has to make, with something so old as World of Warcraft, a lot of re-engineering every time something new comes in. And the whole meme of the elevators in Siege of Orgrimmar affecting the housing is going to be around for a while, with just how complicated it is. So yeah, I would expect to see it improved and the sort of limitations go away. But yeah, right now, and I can't imagine, like, if a studio such as Valve, with, I mean, Valve doesn't. They're not under Microsoft or anything, and if they're getting if they're unable to be getting whether it's SSDs or RAM, um, you know, without them being able to make a deal to get them at a good price, that they have to do it month to month for their new Steam machine. I highly doubt Blizzard is really able to do the same thing. So I mean, it could even just be a matter of storage at this point. And because I mean, if you look around, the hard drive manufacturers all say that, well, first of all, the consumer stuff is basically dead, or that if you wanted like a hard drive even as a consumer now, you're going to have to pay from a percent of availability versus companies that have bought them all the way through 2027 at this point.
Yeah. And one other thing to bring up here that we mentioned, we get 2 new Warband screens, which is pretty cool. They both look really awesome. One of them is so both of them are basically the same shot. It's the front gates of Silvermoon, and you can see the bazaar, the building for the bazaar, like right in the middle, and you can see a little bit of the sky behind that. It's beautiful, looks really awesome. It's going to be a great warband screen, I believe. Probably one of the best ones. And you get that by doing Lady Leandrin's Unity Against the Void quest for Silvermoon Citizens Emblems. And it looks like it's going to be time gated. So you have to, once you're done with that, for the first week, you'll get a token. And then you'll need 4 of those in order to collect the warband screen. Then Barista Windrunner's new Trailing Zalatath collection of quests, or well, their collection quests. So you're just out there like picking stuff up. They're pretty easy quests. They don't take much effort. Not really combat quests. And then again, 4 turn-ins for that one. They're going to be weeklies, and so in 4 weeks, in a month after 12.1 launches, you'll be able to get both of those. And the second one is the exact same screen, except you can see the dark well shooting up into the sky behind it.
Yeah, I think the Dark Well one actually looks kind of better, just because there's um, the sort of the dichotomy between Silvermoon, which is still very bright and beautiful, but there's this, the ominous background of the Dark Well, and it just
I
really
agree.
looks really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I used it as the artwork for this week's podcast. So people are watching on YouTube, you'll see the artwork there. Or well, I mean the square icon on the podcast is also, you'll see it.
Yeah, I mean it's a perfect picture for that too.
Yeah, it looks great. I love it. I was a little bummed out that was like one from like a Delve season that I didn't get, that I still need to figure out how to go back and get. I don't even know if it's like even available anymore. It was the one where I think it was like the ship that was crashed when you were down there with that Templar girl, or with that with the Arathi girl. And you go with
Okay.
Varian's son. He was on the ship too.
Yes, and when
Yeah, Anduin was down there, and then the Arathi girl, and then like the ship gets like webbed up. Yeah, there was a delve, or there was like a delve reward that you can buy, and it was a warband screen that had, or maybe it was from an achievement from delves or something, but it was a warband screen that had that on it, and that was like one of the coolest ones. I loved. Damn, I completely forgot the name of that. Cat. I was like, I know it's Aj something. I just don't. Aj, like, I was gonna call it Aj Amon. I was like, no. Troll stuff, spider stuff. Can't mix them. Oh man, troll spiders or trolls riding spiders. Man, that might be crazy. Well, we haven't got one yet, but fingers crossed.
We do at least have some spider mounts, but we don't have any citizens from Ashkahet to ride.
Yeah, And speaking of really awesome mounts, our next news item, we got a faction spotlight: Zul'jarra's forces. Zul'jarra has brought together all of the forces in Zul'Aman, all of the tribes, and they're all fighting under her banner. She's been blessed by the Loa, and their people just like outright believe that she's the one. She's fucking Himothy, so she's leading the people, and um to the antithesis of that, Zul'Jan has different plans, and there's a comic, and we'll go on that next for our next news item. But there's some really interesting lore that comes out with that, and the Zul'Jarra's forces are going to be helping us basically attack the forces on the Coiled Isle, and so this is going to be. Where we're getting a lot of our renown for the activities that we're doing on the island. There's a couple other things, activities and such on the island that are like separate. I think there's even the Tortellin. There's or Tortolan. There's a Tortolan there that will give you like fishing stuff. Like he'll give you the ability like to fish in like the cursed or the poisoned waters and stuff. So that's like pretty cool. There's gonna be some like fishing events and such there, which is I love that they're not ignoring fishing. That's really like coming up into a profession that like gets attention almost each patch, like every other patch at least.
Yeah, and for those who still have their fishing legendary, it gives them the chance to use it. People still, I've never got an opportunity to get it, but people still love that so very much. Um, but yeah, I can't wait to um, see how the story further goes. Again, I mentioned before, I've always been Alliance, but it is very interesting. Um, the split between Zul'Jan and Zul'Jarra, and I'm very interested. Whoops, I'm very interested to see how that works out.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally missed, like, I mean, I used mounts as a segue, and then I completely forgot about the mounts. I would suggest that people look up Zul'Jarra's forces. The factions spotlight Wowhead has an article on it. You should be able to look up specifically. I would just suggest looking up Violet backed Skyfang, Indigo Coiled Horror, and Spirit of Takjara. Spirit Talk Jar is kind of cool. It's just like glowing bird. If you're into birds, pretty cool for you. But the violet backed Skyfang, it looks like just a really freaking cute version of Ula'tek. So Ula'tek is basically a wind serpent, but it's got like 5 heads. And so this is like
Hmm.
a little wind serpent with 1 head and not like morphed out. But I don't know, man. Like these little snake faces, the way they just designed them this time around, they're freaking adorable. Like if you look up
I don't.
Violet backed Skyfang and then use the 3D view in 3D option, now that they've got that down in Wowhead, you get to see it
Right.
animated, and dude, it's great. This little snake is freaking adorable.
Yeah, it has sort of. I don't know. It reminds me of gardener snakes whenever I was a
Yes,
kid. Like the
yes,
and then the is it the big old snake, the coiled horror, just looks like a really beefed up Viper.
bro, it does. That's crazy. You get a freaking Pokemon for a mount.
And I mean, I wouldn't mess with it.
Dude, it's terrifying, but looking at this mount, looking at like the gear, um, I know there's people who are saying, everyone's always going to have opinions about the way that your class's fantasy is being played out in their gear. So the art direction is really important and close to a lot of people's hearts. And they're not going to nail it for your class every single season. But I think something that should be appreciated about the art team is that for every single class, you do get variety across the seasons. They're never looking the same. And this season, man, do we got a lot of flavor.
Yeah, very very diverse. I mean, um, they have been hitting it out of the park. I don't know what else to say.
I mean, speaking of gear, today is August 1st. So we should definitely mention you should all remember to pay your rent and pay your bills, but also go to the trading post and check it out. And me personally, I'm super excited because finally I get to make my outlaw rogue a bandito.
Yes.
It's the full workup, the full gear. You get the the cowboy handkerchief on your face. You get the cowboy hat, the little tasseled shoulders. You even get two 6-shooters on the sides of your belt. So we now have a belt item that puts 6-shooters on our waist. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And the boots, like the whole thing is great. I was telling somebody the first thing I did was was jump. It was get into the transmog, jump on a horse, and then RP walk through Silvermoon.
That's awesome.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Exactly. And we actually get 3 different colors. The
Where's the third one
what's it
at?
called? So the main reward for getting all 1,000
Oh, I didn't
is
even look.
yeah, the traveler's log for this week is the Midnight Outlaw. That's the black/gray sort of
Oh,
version.
I gotta get that one.
Um, yeah, that's the probably the best one for the outlaw rogues. There is the sort of more traditional brown and orange. That's when you purchase for I think it's 700 traders tokens, somewhere around there. And there's the third one is a white version.
Yeah, the white
It's
version looked
like
kind of
a
cool,
mhm,
like a light
uh,
forged or something, right?
it was more just plain white, like sort of
Oh no, like the
if you were a
name, right? Wasn't the name like the light
I
or
think it's
something?
I thought it was snowy.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm
I'd
not
have to
really
check
sure.
that.
They did a lot of the white ones, like the jumpsuit and the witch hat. That's another thing too. There's these certain outfits that the trading post sort of rotates through as a sort of like a long list of colorations. The jumpsuits, the sweatsuits are one of those. So you get like a long sleeve sweater and long sleeve sweatpants, and they've been going through a lot of different colors of those. There's a witch hat that comes with a cape. And it's a really big witch hat, very very stylish. Love the shape, love the model, and they've been going through different colors of that as well. Um, and now that we've got this outlaw outfit, I noticed that along with the jumpsuit and the mage's hat and cape, they now have a the same color scheme title for an outlaw hat. So this month you get midnight and snowy outfits from the trading post. So if you're looking for a midnight or snowy coloration of the sweatsuits, now the outlaw hats or the witch hat with the cape, those are all available for this month. So those are the two colors, which in my opinion, are probably the two coolest colors you can have in any of those outfits. I think those ones, I like the colors in between and stuff, but there's just something about the midnight coloration is just closer to black. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that and the more traditional, brown ones are good. But yeah, I agree. The black one is definitely the best.
Yeah, we had a sepia one, I think, and that one was pretty good too. Yeah, the brown colorations look really good on these assets. But yeah. So if you guys are really into those colors, you want those colorations, definitely check out the trading post. They've got the midnight and the snowy colorations, and yeah, and three bandito outfits. So get out there and get yours, and then earn all your tokens so you can get that third one. And also the vendor that you're going to be able to buy these things from for Zul'jarra's forces, I believe they said there's not very much in the way of player power, but there's some profession recipes that are going to be important to some people. So if professions and crafting are important to you, definitely make sure that you're out there and you're earning the reputation for leveling these up. Because I believe some of the I know that the mounts require renown 17, so you're not going to get those mounts for a little bit.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of surprised they are bringing in. like new cauldrons and flasks, but the reason it surprised me if they didn't really do that with War Within. So I'm wondering if, because we are getting both the nebulous void cores and um, the void shards, um, I'm sorry, the ascendant void cores, excuse me, that upgrades the gear. Uh, I'm guessing that because there's a larger difference in eye level, you know, being maxed out, that's why they're doing it. But I do find it interesting that we're going back to in previous expansions where they did introduce new flasks and such.
Yeah, I think it keeps things a little relevant. And I think that does give the opportunity for crafters like yourself to make some money at the beginning of the expansion because, like, you know, they they're very much in need. Like, people
Hmm.
need that one, and it's not like, oh, well, everybody in the market has already worked here for a whole season, so we're all competing. It's the people who get in there first, and you make the most money, like it is at the beginning of an expansion. You sort of get that loop again at the beginning of this season.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's nice when they can reward players who have more time like that, right? Like those are the kinds of rewards for time that, like, I think just make a lot of sense, right? Like that's something that I'm probably not going to do, but if I did do it, I would have the understanding that it is a time commitment, and those are some of the things in the game that I don't spend a lot of time on, and I focus on other things. But for the people who do participate in there, there's definitely an opportunity to make more money, pay for your WoW subscription, like do a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, plus it also, I think it gives a purpose to raid members. In other words, like, some people in the raid can max out flasks first, and then another person can do potions first. And
Ooh,
then that
definitely.
way, one person could be doing the flask cauldrons, the others the potion cauldrons, or even, with cooking with the food, inscriptions with the Vantis runes, etc.
Multiple
So
blacksmiths.
yeah, yeah. So it gives an opportunity, like you said, not just to compete in the market, but also to sort of um, specialize in a way in a guild slash raid that you can help out and everything.
Yeah, I like that. The way the crafting orders work, I understand the system that they have in place for, like, getting like your guild to, just like leaving a guild crafting order open so anybody in your guild can fill it. I really hope that there's a consideration. I assume that this system is not extended to communities because of a technological limitation, and I hope that that's something that they're considering working on, because I would really like to be able to put up an order for a community that I'm in, because, like, I do mythic raiding with Eowyn, so I have to be in a mythic raiding guild with that one, and then all my other alts are in, like, a fun guild that I have that's just, like, very, very casual. Um, and so I do a lot of, like, casual content with them and all my other characters, but sometimes I need something crafted, and there are so many people in that guild that there are a large number of people for every single profession. So basically, any time of the day, as long as I announce it in Discord, somebody will be on or can get on and craft something.
Right, and it would be a nice evolution of the system, like you said. Um, Guilds are also still limited or hard limited to, I think, something like 400 or 500 members,
Hmm.
and being able to essentially stretch that, I think, is a very good idea through the community system. I don't know if they're, what the um, limit is for a community, but yeah, having sort of almost a dual guild would really, I think, help.
Yeah, I mean, because that's kind of what communities are supposed to be, right? And
Hmm.
I'm kind of hoping that this Discord thing that they have, it also extends to communities eventually, right? Like I feel like communities are the second answer to guilds. And while I don't think communities should get everything that a guild should get, like I think guild halls should be guild halls. Like it should be a guild thing, and it should be in your guild neighborhood. It should not be in a community neighborhood. I think that there should definitely be a separation there. I don't need homogenization across everything, but I think the quality of life features in some of these things can be shared across guild and community.
Yeah, and especially because the price that you might pay in putting a public order in, and by this I mean, like, let's say you accidentally um, put in an order that was wrong, and you wanted, a guildie or someone from the community to 5-star the craft. um, there's always that chance, if you're not used to the system, of accidentally doing that. Whereas, if I would see that, I would say, "Hey, Squirrelthug, I see you. It was set to, like, 4-star. Do you want me to 5-star it? Did you make a mistake?" Something like that.
Yeah.
Um, um, that I think is very much something that a guild community, or obviously a guild, would really help with.
Yeah, public order is just going to get filled no matter what. Then you're going to have to recraft that thing. And I've done that before more than once.
Yeah, yeah, and I've done that as well. Um, and I will say that the UI that the work orders that we currently have is, I still think it's good, but I think there's some improvement. This is sort of a side tangent in terms of discussion, but I think it could be improved a bit, just to, and I'm not sure necessarily in what way, but just to be a little more um, opaque about how the star rank system works.
I would almost expect a UI overhaul with the professions overhaul that they were mentioning, that Ian was mentioning in his Q&A. There seems to be this idea of really separating the professions in a way that they have not been separated before, and
Right.
recategorizing them. Even in the way of like putting a hard line between crafting professions and not even just gathering professions and crafting professions on either side of a wall. So I think um, I think we can expect a UI overhaul and a completely different approach to the system when we get whatever that is. I don't know that it'll make it in for the war or the Last Titan, but the way that they were talking about it, definitely after that. But also we're getting some love for archaeology in the Last Titan, so we
Hmm.
might get it sooner.
Yeah, and archaeology get. I mean, has it even changed in terms of the amount of different um, races that it's covered? Because I can't remember if it ever did or not.
I I know that a while ago they stopped adding to it. You're right. We
Yeah.
got like we did. The Cataclysm was when it came in, and going forward we did get other expansions that added certain like races lore to it and places that you can go and excavate. I think Pandaria had a few places, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe maybe Warlords of Draenor, but there was a certain point where they stopped adding things. It just I don't know. Like I get it. Not a lot of people like participated in the system, and maybe the development cycle on that was just too long. Coming up with lore, art for the piece, coming up with the mechanics for like a toy or some thing. But I don't know, man. I think archaeology today would be should be a path to a lot of decor, a lot of cool
Yes.
decor, a lot of rare
Yes.
decor. I think they should put decor behind it because that was really the biggest reason. There wasn't anything fucking awesome that you could get from um that you can get from archaeology except for like a few random things, and they were hard to get, and I was willing to go through all of that to get them, but once I got them I was done, right? But if you put a lot of cool decor up, and that's a continuing pattern, that I have the expectation that in the next expansion, my expectation is that there will be archaeology zones scattered throughout the maps, and I will at some point take my time to go and visit them as I'm visiting the open world, doing prey systems, going to delves, like whatever it is that I'm doing and moving through the open world. There's a very good chance that archaeology gets put into that loop because I'm going to want those decor items.
Exactly. I think the only other real interesting thing was the heirlooms, but you know, we really don't. I mean, a lot of people don't have low levels enough that they can really take advantage of the heirlooms anymore.
You level too fast.
Mhm.
It's weird when you're wearing them. I don't know. I think their whole leveling system needs to be like rehashed as well. There needs to be a different approach to how we level. So hopefully they figure that out too, and then we get something. Um, but yeah, on to our next news item. We have the new comic Legacy of Rage, and they just dropped this very recently. And this one has the Zul'jarra's brother, Zul'jan, and it follows him sort of. He's talking to a ghost, and there was a troll that was at his grandfather's side. So when Zul'jin went to the temple, basically this ghost, this spirit, was telling the tale of Zul'jin to Zul'jan, and he was telling him of Ula'tek, right? He's kind of mentioning this power, this grand power, and Zul'jan knows exactly what he was talking about. He's like, "Oh, you're talking about Ula'tek," and he said, "I told your grandfather to go and take the power." And instead, he decided that he would go to the Loa and he would ask for their blessing to become their Hashe, and to then, bring the empire to greatness again. The Loa denied him, and in denying him, he lashed out on the Loa, which is, that they just murdered them. So, they built Zoloman, this pinnacle of power for their troll, for their empire, and their Loa resided there, and they went to this place of power to ask for this blessing. And I mean, the trolls are very powerful, and obviously, they I mean, I just, the way that it was portrayed in the comic, because it's also a YouTube video, and so it's kind of cuts through these frames, and there's a voiceover for it, so it's really cool, and it only takes 6.5 minutes. um a very good story, but it's almost like it's very horrifying, especially from like the point of the Loa, of like you have these people who come to you and they worship you, and like you've angered them, and so now like one by one, like this angry mob is marching through this temple where all the Loa are, and they're just like murdering each one of them and literally eating them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
nightmare fuel.
Yeah. Seriously. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to read or listen to it yet. But yeah, there's a lot of dark stories in World of Warcraft, and um, it sounds about like this is one of the darker tales.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and we see Zul'jan, he's going to be going for that power, and we were speculating on why he would go there and what his motivations would be a few episodes ago, and I think I was thinking that, or there was a speculation that I agreed with, that it might be like a Garrosh moment where he's going to reach for power to fight against the evil that's out there, but it doesn't seem to be that. It seems that he's purely focused on bringing the troll empire to greatness, and like it was before, which in that time there was no Silvermoon, so they're gonna have to wipe that one clean. And all the other empires, like in order to bring the troll empire back to greatness, it would mean the eradication of all other cultures, right, and all other empires that are on Azeroth right now.
Right, and especially considering just how how vast, like you were saying before, the Troll Empire or empires really were and are. I mean, the trolls are on every continent in Azeroth, and probably because I'd have to think of it, but basically every biome as well. You know,
Yeah.
they're a very hardy and enduring people that can really just survive.
Yeah, they regenerate. They can regenerate limbs. They're hard to kill. They are resistant to magic. I mean, obviously, fire will destroy them, but if I'm not mistaken, it has to be magical fire. Like, like the humans, there was like a whole story and stuff where like humans took they made a deal with the elves because the elves needed help, and in order to help, like the humans agreed on the condition that they were going to train some mages. I think it was like 100 mages, like the first 100 mages for humans, and the elves had to make good on that promise. And humans gaining fire, like magical fire, is what allowed them to fight back against the Troll Empire, like and like or the remnants of the Troll Empire and such whenever they were around. And so that was a big deal for them. And I believe that is like the same conflict that the elves had with the trolls, because like early on, because they're like ancient, right? So like way back then, when it was just trolls, like they ruled everything and there was nobody to like contend with them. And then once people started figuring out magic, it was magical fire that was able to stop their healing. And so that's why they feared magic users basically.
Yeah, and that would make sense. Them finding out or having to come up with something that could just blow past their resistances, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because like you were saying, trolls are hardy. They're a hardy race. They're huge. They're super tall. They are really strong. Like male or female, doesn't matter. These things are jacked. All of them, and they're magical
Hmm.
resistant. They're super powerful. They regenerate. They're basically monsters. Like, right? Like you do not want to fight a troll. You're gonna roll up into a jungle of actual monsters and giant tigers and dinosaurs, and then there's like this hyper intelligent, magic resistant, like Amani troll that's chasing you down in the jungle. Like it's game over.
Yeah, and didn't the elves sort of evolve from the trolls?
Yeah, the I know that the Harneer had like released something where they were like, actually, the way that we see it, when we speak to, what's her name, and we're able to like reach into the past and see certain visions of what was before. The way that we are being fed the story, it's the both of you spawn from us. So like they're the
Mm,
um the originating bloodline for both of these races. However, there was a big controversy when this came out, and people were really upset with how like the lore was playing out, and this sort of, if like let's say this were to be definitively and absolutely true and canon in a meta way, right? Like not just the trolls belief or the elves belief or the what the Harnir believe. It's like what Blizzard believes, right? Is how people
right.
took it. But Blizzard had to come out with a blue post even and say, like, okay, just to be very clear, while we are not saying that this is not true or canon or anything in any other way, right? Please read the story, read the text, read what it is saying and how they are describing, what this is, and understand that when Zul'jarra, or when what is that Harnir's name? I always forget her name. But whenever she mentioned, like, retold the story, she even mentioned that this is the interpretation of what visions that they're being given, and the details are not always exact. And so the visions aren't always from the past. They can be other things. And so they've come to learn that these are sort of interpretations, almost like a dreamlike state of retelling a story. And so it's that
Right.
there are things that are not going to be exact, but basically the gist of it is they're all kind of they all have like common ancestry that ties them all together. And so they're not like these like disparate different races, like in the sense that like dwarves are made from the curse of flesh on iron dwarves, right? Or not, well, not like dark iron dwarves, like the stone dwarves and stuff, right?
Right.
And so yeah, so like the curse of flesh on these things is what turned them into that. So they're not even like, they don't even have a lineage on Azeroth in that way, right? So that's, so it's a little different than some of the other ones. I don't know. I think the one of the complaints that I had seen on certain social platforms were that people were kind of reading into this as Blizzard um, trying to erase the war in Warcraft.
Oh, well, I mean,
Like
that
we're all one big
seems,
happy family. We should all just be on the same side, you know?
yeah, that seems overblown, in my opinion. But
I mean, we still go to
um,
war, you know? Like we're going to
mhm,
war with Ula'tek. We're at war with Xal'atath and the entirety of the Void. Like we are always at war. I don't know what people's attachment to faction like PvP type of thing. Like most people don't even PvP. Well, if you keep going over that,
right.
like this is not a PvP game. Um, and PvPers are not RPers. And so like the overlap of like the people who I would think would genuinely care about a faction division line, like they don't simultaneously care about the story in that way. They just play the game with the system that's available to them because PvP is fun for them. Um, and then there's everybody else who's like, why are you taking the fighting out of World of Warcraft? Like, dude, you don't even do the fighting.
hmm Plus, I mean, with regards to uh, Zul'Jara, I mean, we're gonna be facing up against him and his lust for power. So that seems pretty warlike to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, as we see it, so far in the story in the raid bosses, Zul'Jara is not one of the raid bosses that we fight. And so unless they come out with something later in the season and we have to contend with him head to head, this seems more like he's on a campaign and he just simply needs to be stopped, which is what Zul'Jara's forces are doing. And there's an understanding that he's moving to Ula'tek. He's moving for that. And if he unlocks that in whatever way that he plans on, because he's got a key basically to unlock this god and unlock the prison. And so if he does that, that's a force that's strong enough contention that would um, you know, it stands to threaten the entirety of the Omani Empire. Like there's a naivety to Zul'Jara in the way that he's interpreting this power and sort of not understanding the full extent of the risk that he's taking. Well, he does understand the risk and he's playing it out in his head like what this means. There seems to be some ulterior motives from the spirits that are helping him. Even though Zul'Jara does seem to be very clever and not easily manipulated by them, him just going for this power may actually just be a move from an old god that is manipulating a spirit in some way, right? Like it's really hard to tell what's going on, but it doesn't seem that we're gonna go head to head with Zul'Jara. We may just be getting in the way of Ula'tek coming into power and then maybe either re-imprisoning them or like slaying them for good. Um, yeah, but like what happens to a low when they die? Is there a resurrection thing? Like we don't really know
hmm
much about them.
Yeah, and with Zul'Jin becoming a low and everything as well. Um, that's we it's very mysterious.
Yeah. Because I mean that was like Joljin's attempt, right? Eat the gods, become a god, and then we jump in and like stop him and stuff. But
hmm
yeah, Zul'Jara, it's gonna be interesting. But I don't know that we're gonna fight him, and I kind of don't want to. I don't want to kill Zul'Jara's brother. I'd really just rather him join forces with the rest of the Amani, and then maybe the things that he's doing, he discovers how this is all tied to the thing that we should be focusing on, the dark well.
Right, right. And I think on that point, it's less about taking the war out of Warcraft and more about they have these interesting characters that you care about.
Yeah, Zul'jarra just got here, and I'm interested. I'm invested. Like troll lore is pretty awesome, and the Zul'imon story was so good for leveling, and is so well done. And I'm really glad to see this season really fleshed out with a lot of like really cool troll stuff.
Yeah, same.
And on to our last news item. Project Camelot moves to vendor server. The mysterious Project Camelot build, widely believed to be a new take on WoW Classic, just moved from Blizzard's internal dev servers to a vendor server, a step usually reserved for external compatibility testing. Data miners have tracked this 1.60 build since October of last year. And the move to a vendor server suggests Blizzard may be preparing to let outside partners test hardware and software compatibility, often a late stage production signal. It's fueling speculation that a playable version could show up at BlizzCon 2026, similar to how Season of Discovery was showcased there in 2023. Um, did you see the update for this?
Yeah, this is still very, I don't know,
Very hush
it's
hush.
yeah, very sort of strange in a way. I also find it interesting still that they named it Project Camelot. Obviously, this is World of Warcraft and we're into fantasy and stuff, but I'd be curious, if there was any meaning or if it's how, for example, the GameCube was named Dolphin for whatever reason, and its CPU's chip was named Flipper because the project was named Dolphin, or if it has, like I said, any sort of actual meaning. But it's obviously, if they're getting ready for it to test, you know, there's going to be something here very soon, even if it's just to look at and sort of speculate. But again, the rapidity of Blizzard's endeavors to release new content keeps going up. So I find it that, like you said, it's probably going to be shown at BlizzCon in some form, or at the very least mentioned. But um, I do see, like on the article, questioning whether they're planning a closed beta. I'm just wondering if for closed beta, um, if that would be a private beta, i.e., you're not supposed to stream it or anything, or if it would be closed in the sense that you'd have to sign up for it. Because again, it seems pretty hush hush.
Yeah, everything is still encrypted, and they haven't actually been able to figure anything out from the build. But I mean, the moment something slips through or something is unencrypted, data miners are going to be on top of that thing, and we're going to know exactly what it is. So I imagine it's going to be like it just makes sense to me to remain this way until after BlizzCon, especially if they plan to give us a demo, because it'll just be that hardware that's linked up to those servers. So they wouldn't have to be
Yeah,
unencrypted or anything.
right. And also, if they bring it out in BlizzCon, they'll choose the certain PC parts that they've validated internally. Um, but yeah, I do think there's going to be something at BlizzCon for that. Um, again, even if it's just like an announcement or something. But I do wonder, like I said about the name Camelot and the fact that they're sort of importing and some of the changes like the nameplate system into Classic, if maybe they would think about housing into Classic, and maybe that's why they named Camelot, i.e., a castle.
We could have a completely new take on capital cities. We'd have a different timeline of Classic. Where the zones look different. Emerald Dream Lake, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, very excited. I think whatever they do come out with, it's gonna be pretty exciting. At the very least, when it launches. And I heard somebody saying something about um get it when they got rid of like the identities of like servers and server groups, battle groups and such. There's sort of like we sort of lost one avenue that we had like sort of identity on, and I think a part of that comes with the dwindling population just across all of the servers, and a lot of people are really kind of married to a lot of like their servers that they started on. So binding things together and using phasing and bringing more people into Silvermoon, so to speak, right? Like, and so you have a full city when you're there, even in the middle of the night. Like anybody that's actually on is going to be filling out that one phase and that one shard. And yeah, it's just I I think they did a good job with that, but I think that person had a really good point in some of the identity for like smaller communities and server groups and such. They're sort of lost. They don't have server first achievements anymore. Um, but I would say I know Moonguard gets a bad rap for a lot of reasons, but a lot of those weird things that happened on that server, they are all in private now, and they have been for a really long time. Um,
Hmm.
and so none of that strange stuff from the old internet like ever goes down over there. But what is true is that it is quite possibly the most busy server that I've ever been on in World of Warcraft. And I've been on Tichondrius. Wormrest Accord was big in certain seasons. And there's a couple other servers that just have like a high pop. And I've been there for a number of reasons. But I did Tichondrius for like PvP and stuff. And even though that one had like a really large community, Moonguard for some reason has so many people on it, and on Alliance side, Horde is basically empty. It's crazy. I think there's another server that you can go. It's another RP server, and they have like a ton of Horde on there. But the numbers that they have nowhere near Moonguard numbers. So when you're sitting in trade chat, there's just constant conversation going on in trade chat. There's always groups forming. There's just a lot of activity on that server. So I feel like some of those community things are still there, but like in rare places. And when a new version of the game launches, or a new classic, or TBC classic launches, or something, there's always a big influx of players. So if you can find the time to pull away from retail and go play one of those classics at launch, you only have to play it for like the first month. You are going to get so many people. Yeah, dungeon queues are going to pop instantly. Like all these things it's going to feel like a really full server for a little while, and then everyone just like moves on and they go and do other things. But for that month, it's really nice. It really brings that like old classic feel back.
Yeah, and I know, um, like you said, that people have been asking for the battle groups and stuff, and um, the whole idea of one server out PvPing another um, was both infuriating, at least for world content, but also exciting at the same time, assuming, that chaos was sort of equal. But I know there were a lot of complaints, especially because, and I don't necessarily have the data, and if memory serves, Ian said it was even, but there's always been the thought that Horde just simply um, very much over populates the PvP side
Yeah.
versus Alliance. But I think Ian said something, and this was years ago, so you know I don't remember the full context, but I think he said it was sort of 50-50. But the problem was that certain battle groups, there were more Horde than Alliance, sometimes like 2 to 1.
Oh yeah.
um, and on other ones it was reversed. So there was never a real way to even it out. It was just people who like to PvP go on this server, and if they're Horde and Alliance, the same sort of way. So you know, could that be fixed? Maybe, but at the very least, the idea of the war mode exists for a reason, to sort of balance that out.
Yeah, and you get bonuses to experience and such for war mode. It's a benefit definitely to consider. And dude, there's so many people who put war mode on and then don't engage in combat because there's almost an
Hmm.
understanding from a lot of people that this is just for experience. We're just trying to get there as fast as we can, and we're not going to deal with like any of that other stuff. But funny. Speaking of PvP, and this is a side tangent because we didn't have a news item on this, but there was another podcast that went over this. There was a story, and it was a video on YouTube. It got suggested to a bunch of these people who follow a lot of WoW news and such. So it's something that kind of blew up within the WoW community on YouTube. And this video went around. There's this guy who he makes some YouTube content, like mid-core players, and I think he does like mythic kind of rating, but like real chill, not really anything crazy. Um, and or I think that was like his normal content, but there was something in like classic that some classic guild was like griefing him, and actually I think that he is a retail player and they were griefing his like YouTube or something, and they were doing something to be bothersome. And he was like, I'm gonna look into this. And so he figured out that they were a classic guild and they were on a classic server. So he goes and he plays and he levels a character on there, and then he joins their classic guild. And then he gets in there and he starts like taking screenshots of their Discord, and he's like taking screenshots of like all their chats. And like as he comes to find out throughout his investigation of this, is that the people that were kind of trolling him, it's not just him, it's everyone, like anyone that they can troll and go attack as a group, they do. And they're just basically very childish group of players. And the unfortunate circumstance about this situation is that the leader of the Discord that is at the head of this is basically the spearhead for all of the bad stuff. Like they are the one that's like launching these campaigns against people at
Hmm.
random, and finding ways to like troll players on the server. And so he kind of had all this whole list of all these egregious acts that they had committed, and the community was a little divided on this one. He had it was like a 60-minute video on YouTube, and he had like thousands and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views on it. So the guy made some money off it. So it's pretty, hey, good for him. Which is, I think they pointed out that it was really ironic because the people were trying to mess with his YouTube, and then he went and did an investigative story on them, and then he blew up. So it worked out in his favor anyways. It kind of backfired on them. But in doing this investigation, he started like seeing all the stuff that they were doing, and while a lot of it was like undeniably bad. Racism, sexism, misogyny,
Mm.
like all kinds of stuff in their Discord and all that stuff. So that's just like, okay, you got a bunch of like of just the low end players. You got a cesspool here, basically. Um,
Hmm.
One of the things they did, I think, was a divisive in the community was on classic servers. There's not very many guilds. On classic servers, there's not very many guilds that raid. And in classic servers, not very many guilds that raid consistently and successfully. And so, because there are very few of them, when you're on a classic server, uh, even just asking around, it would be very easy for most people to know which the main guilds are on the server. I'm on a classic hardcore server, and if you jump in there and ask somebody like what guilds there are to join, they will tell you two guilds exactly. One of them is a leveling guild, and one of them is the only raiding guild on the server. So you join the leveling guild,
Yeah.
and everybody helps you out, and you have groupings and stuff and things for that. And then if you get to the end and you want to raid, you leave the guild, you join the other guild, and then you raid with them. So it's like things like that will happen on classic servers. There's a very small community, and so because of the way that that's set up, there are specific nights that are very well known where these guilds will go and raid. And for, I believe this is a TBC raid. I mean, it's Zolomon. It might be that one. It might be another one. But when you die and you release, you basically you res. You don't turn into a ghost. You res at the graveyard, and then you run back through the world. Right. These
Hmm.
these griefers will go. This is hilarious. These griefers will go to the graveyard on the raid nights and wait for someone to mess up and release, and then just camp them like ridiculously camp them until the entire raid group has to leave the raid and come out to save the one guy that is
Oh,
getting like
geez.
griefed. And that's terrible because along with all the other stuff that they do, it's just another terrible thing. But it's unfortunately not a good argument for why they're a group of bad people. There's more than enough examples of them being bad people, and we should just use those to condemn them. But what they're doing in that case, while it is another form of griefing, and I'm sure that they see it that way, it's PvP. This is like
Yeah,
World
yeah,
PvP and World of Warcraft. That's par for the course on classic servers. It's a very common thing for PvP servers. Um, I know that limited servers are limited, and so if you get stuck on a PvP server, it's sort of like, man, this is the only place to raid. There's that kind of thing. So there's the unfortunate circumstance of it, but that's one of the appeals of Classic is to have that open world PvP, the aspect that brings, because it's a completely different dynamic in from retail to Classic. Like if you're used to retail and you go back to Classic, you're gonna be like, how is this allowed?
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely still, an entirely different experience. You know, it's been what 22 years since the beginning of WoW, and the difference between classic and it's interesting that the people who actually played classic, actually played classic. In other words, like you said, they were acting like they did in classic,
Yeah.
um, in terms of PvP, um, because I do remember, like, even in Wrath, it was still sort of the same way. Obviously, I was sort of a Wrath baby. Technically, I started in BC, but that was trial account. Anyway, I do still remember, hearing about World of Warcraft before I even really started playing, and those kinds of scenes in them, or and how they played out. So it's just kind of it's interesting how much of the that DNA was still in people whenever they were playing classic. Um, but yeah, I agree. That was definitely, that is PvP, especially on that scale. And I know even Blizzard instituted those changes where you could now store the world buffs from
Oh yeah.
um, in classic, so then you didn't have to go through PvP and lose them,
Hmm.
in case that would happen, which I think was more often than not.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you could you could lose them in there, but it's nice that they have those little items for us in classic. But yeah, like you were saying, that is just the way it is. It's just the way PvP is. That's how people played before, and quite a bit of people who come back to play classic are not retail players. They re up their subscription, and they jump into classic because that's the game that they liked, and they don't like the newer version. So that's where those people come from. Um, but yeah, like I remember because I'm also a Wrath baby, and I remember that my friends who got me into the game, right, we're at the tail end of TBC as I'm jumping in, and Wrath is launching, and they have stories from the Isle of Quel'Danas of rogues just coming out of nowhere and just annihilating you in one or two globals and then
Yep.
vanishing, and then another rogue pops out and uses all of his cooldowns on the other guy, and you're just like, is there a sea of invisible rogues in front of me? Like if you had the demon hunter vision somehow, like back then, and
Right,
it
right.
lights up. It's just a sea of rogues in front of you. But it did seem like that, like rogues and mages and such, and certain classes were like very powerful in PvP, and they would just absolutely dominate in the PvP areas. But Blizzard did that on purpose. The Isle of Quel'Danas had player power associated with it. And you needed to go there, but it was a non-negotiable PvP zone. You could be on a non-PvP server. You go in that zone, you're on PvP.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they've had things like this. I think out in Stranglethorn Vale, there's an arena. You go inside, you and somebody else from your faction can kill each other now. Like it just flags everybody as enemies. So that's the old classic WoW. Classic WoW has PvP and has those types of players and has those types of systems baked into the game, and it is an expectation of the game of the players to participate in those systems, whether they like it or not, because someone will force you into a PvP duel.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was just an interesting little story I had heard about before we closed it out for today. I just thought that was an interesting story how that played out. But yeah, as a reminder, PvP is brutal. It's absolutely brutal
Yeah.
on classic servers. They are unforgiving, and the systems that kind of help and protect you from like getting grief like that, like dude, you could just like character stuck or something, log out, character stuck, go hearth, and and then you don't have to deal with that anymore, and you're not getting griefed. Like there are definitely a lot of ways to get out of those kinds of things now that you just wouldn't before. um yeah, I know it's it's funny to hear. Unfortunate for all the other stuff that guild did though. Definitely, I didn't watch the video, I just heard them talking about it. So based on their descriptions, those people are not good people, but
Right.
PvP is always on the table, folks. And just to go over the again, because I think we mentioned it earlier, the second attempts progress. We are, what is it, 4 out of 6 mythic now on Voidspire.
Yeah. For Void Spire, 4 out of 6, but for total, and that includes Dream Rift, we're now 5 out of 9. And
And
I think
Sporeful.
we can. Oh yeah, Sportful. Although for whatever reason they don't count that in terms of the raid progress, but I think that's has to do with the CE achievements and stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, is it like we were saying, is closer to like a world boss kind of weird thing.
Yeah. But anyway, the plan is to start on Tuesday and work through and kill Vanguard.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting. That's gonna be awesome. And yeah, and anybody out there, you guys getting bored on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night, definitely to jump into Templar's stream. He's always streaming each one of the raids, so make sure you show up and say what's up in the chat. It'd be good to have some people in there. um,
Yeah, and I am going to so basically, since I'm on Linux, there's a sort of modified version of OBS that I use that helps with performance, gives it some extra features. Um, but in case anyone is unaware, you uh, the Twitch integration that is normally in OBS is sort of stripped out if you compile your own version. The reason being, apparently, it has to do with Twitch and their copyright and APIs. But I'm going to hopefully this week, if I have time, to sort of go into it and just re-add those, so that
okay.
I could see chat in the OBS window and stuff.
Yeah, it's nice. The built-in integrations that they have make it really easy for like alerts and chat and a bunch of those other things. I like having those.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that Twitch sort of locks it down and OBS basically has no choice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then also, I am definitely, if you guys are, and we're gonna get to this right now, on for our socials, we'll announce them, but definitely go and follow those when we announce them. I am going to start posting clips from the podcast onto there. I recently worked out a little pipeline on my computer for taking separate tracks for our podcast for each of our mics, like whoever's on the show for that day, transcribing it using an AI model, a local one that I have, and then using the transcription text to like isolate certain things so I basically I end up getting a report on different sections and like a verbatim transcription of like that section and how much time it is, so that I can see its potential for like a clip for YouTube or Instagram Reels, or on X, because all of them are like different lengths that you would want for different videos and such. So like much shorter videos, like 30 seconds, are better on like reels and such things like that. So I've got a little pipeline worked out. So I've got them like isolated, and now I think what I'm gonna start like using that to pinpoint potential clips and start adding them to our social media sites and such. That way, because I feel like some of the stuff that we say on this podcast, especially when we get the opportunity to talk about technology, is like really really informative from like both our ends, and you have like a lot of information that's like very very easily consumed, I think, and very digestible. So I wanted to start like taking clips of those and dropping them on our socials. So everyone keep an eye out for those, keep an ear out for those, and check those out. Give us some likes and such if you come across them.
Awesome.
And before we go, if you want to support the show, the best way is through our Patreon. Every bit helps us keep the lights on, improve the production, and keep this going every week. You'll find us at patreon.com/lastattemptpod. If you can't spare the gold, that's totally fine. You can still help in a big way at no cost. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'd love to see love to see you drop a rating. 5-star rating would be great. A review, love to see those. Helps legitimize the podcast. And the biggest thing you can do is help new listeners find us. And we genuinely appreciate anybody sharing our podcast with anyone. Love to see the user base and the viewer base growing. You can also find us on YouTube and some of our other socials: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and now Twitch. As well as there's always a Discord link in the description for our podcast and our YouTube video. So yeah, and at each of those, we are at Last Attempt Pod for our username. It's the same on all of those platforms. So definitely look us up and come and find us. We'll love to see you guys there. And hopefully when we get these reels and such going, we've got some more activity going on. And what we're trying to do is trying to grow this community. We got some plans for next season and things that we're going to try to knock out before the end of midnight. So we've got some like a community going. Want to try and do like an in-game community as well. So not a lot of people in the Discord right now, but we're trying to grow everything, and some exciting things are going to be coming. So definitely stick with us on that, and hopefully you guys can come along for the ride on that. And Templar, you want to let these people know where they can find you?
Yep, you can head to my Twitch page. The easiest way to do that is just type thehumandistraction.com in your favorite browser, all one word, and that'll take you straight to my Twitch page, which is twitch.tv/TemplarIvanhoe.
Awesome. And if you guys want to find me, if I'm ever streaming, it will be at twitch.tv/Squirrelthug_. Still haven't jumped back into that yet, but at some point I definitely will. So yeah, thank you all for listening. We appreciate all the listeners that we have. Appreciate any of you that are sharing the podcast. Great to have you here. Great to have you here again, Templar. Always good to have you back every week. Always appreciate it. And yeah, that's it for us. Thank you. Goodbye.
Later.